and thank you for joining us at the ever-improving No Soundbites Allowed podcast. My name is Michael Vasquez. We thank you for joining us in this adventure of describing the politics that go on in our nation on a personal and local level as often as possible, giving you, the audience, more than just 30 seconds to understand what's going on in our nation. We look forward to joining you as we go. Just sit back, enjoy the ride. Please remember, if you like the episodes, like it, share it, let other people know, and if you can, please donate, even if it's $2, even if it's $5, because it all makes a difference. We thank you, and here we go.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us. That's right, this is Michael Voss, the Dragon of the Southern Tier, your host here at No Soundbites Allowed, the most popular podcast in the Southern Tier of New York. And I'm with you today because I want to talk about a couple of things. It's the 4th of July. I hope that everyone is enjoying this day, that we are enjoying it in peace, amongst friends, with success and warmth and great days. And I know that it isn't necessarily possible for everyone to have that, but I want and I hope that in some way we can all find a little bit of all of those things, no matter how bad the day may be, no matter how great the day may be, that everyone can share in this. And I want to thank you all for taking some time on the 4th of July to be here with us and listening to this program and talking with you, because I enjoy doing this for you. That's why I spend my time with it. That's why I'm here to talk with you, because I think it's important. And today is one of the greatest days in our nation. It's a celebration of who we are, how we got here, and the foundation that allows us to be able to have the freedom, to be able to have this podcast, to be able to get onto social media, to be able to complain about various things, no matter what side you may be on, and to be able to express these things without being shot in the head in the middle of the street, which we see happening just today in Venezuela. We see this happening in North Korea. We see this happening in Iran. And many, and those are just 3 nations, but there are so many across the world, in this Darfur, where individuals are killed just because of the religions they believe in, having done nothing wrong in their lives. And America stands out amongst all those nations as a single beacon that says that we can be better than that we don't need to have some kind of dictatorship and that individuals will be killed just because they speak an idea, a thought that they believe in, or they have a religion that they believe in, or because they were born in a certain place. These are all reasons that are not reasons to do harm, and we don't need that. And our world can be better than that. We are better than that. And we see that in America. And that's what we've been doing in our nation, and we will continue to do that because we are that beacon in the world. I truly believe it. Now, I also want to start this off before I talk about any of the issues, and there's a couple of things, because I want to talk about, while many of us in our nation were looking at today, July 4th in 2018, and we're looking backwards in time. We're looking at where our nation came from and celebrating that. Some people are just celebrating it the day off, but we really should be celebrating where our nation, the foundation, the Constitution, the efforts that have been put throughout the last couple of 100 years to get us to this point. But I also want to look forward. I want to look at what's happening to our nation, because this is an ever-evolving, ever-continuing fight. It just doesn't end because we say we're the best in the world. No, it just doesn't stop there. And we have to be able to protect our democratic republic, because we're not a democracy, we're a democratic republic. But that means we have to work on this. We have to fight for this. We have to work together on this, both with compromise and also making sure we stand by our ideals. And together, in doing all those things, we then get a better nation, and we continue the tradition and the heritage and the obligation to remain free in a world that doesn't want freedom. So I want to take a moment and I want to just talk about something. And I'm going to read something that I wrote because I want to make sure I get it right and I want to get the wording right. I wrote this, but I want to read it off to you. And it goes, as most are starting July with a celebration, those same masses are missing the critical choices lining up before them. Comptroller DiNapoli of New York State just confirmed that the persecution of Republicans, conservatives, Second Amendment supporters, the religious, and businesses that drove out 1.2 million residents from New York is sowing a crushing debt of $18 billion within less than 4 years. It could be faster if the architect of the economic disaster, Governor Andrew Cuomo, and the Democratic oligarchy of New York State is reelected. At the same time, the public has been finally shown the true face of the Democratic Party. As DNC, Democratic National Committee Chairman Tom Perez publicly stated, socialist Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Ben Jealous are the future of the Democratic Party. That means open borders to allow every terrorist and detractor to the United States to enter and evoke disarray and destruction. It means spending on micro minorities with the money of the masses, especially the middle class, just like what's happening right now in New York State and California. It means a government that controls what people say and how they live and what they can possess based on the feelings of a handful of elites. The future is the same as Venezuela, and in fact, the same Venezuela that Senator Bernie Sanders proudly wanted the United States to emulate 3 years ago, even as it is currently burning today in 2018. Meanwhile, state by state, quietly and purportedly to be for the, quote, good of the people, end quote, Americans are being denied their Second Amendment, their Fourth Amendment, and due process rights via red flag laws. Rights that are, as noted by the very Constitution that is supposed to be celebrated on July 4th, not given by the government, but are a birthright from God, a decree and foundational cornerstone of our nation that fewer per year can read, as cursive is no longer taught in schools, and more per year misunderstand as words and meanings of those words are repurposed and rewritten on social media daily. Every 4th of July, the nation has faced and will continue to face challenges to existence. But at this time, as major news media catches up to the average American and announces the potential of a civil war on the horizon, the decisions made based on those challenges will define us all, perhaps irrevocably. And that's a statement I wanted to make here to start off with, because I think it's important. It's a very important statement to be made because it says a lot about where we are as a nation. Where are we going as a nation? What does the 4th of July mean in 2018 as opposed to what it meant back in the 1800s? It's an evolving, growing difference, and it makes a big deal. It is a big deal. So I want to go through that, and I want to go through a lot of things, actually. And I want to talk about, in particular, when we're talking about the freedoms that we have today, that we have the freedom to choose, to make a choice, to decide where we want to be as a nation going forward. And we are being given that decision right now. In the 2018 midterm elections, it has become very clear, as I mentioned, that there is a choice that faces our nation. DNC Chairman Tom Perez made a statement, and that was on, and I want to give you the exact date here, so bear with me a second. He made a statement on the Washington Times, July 3rd, July 2nd. He made this statement on July 3rd or 2nd, where he was speaking about how Miss Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is the future of the party, that socialism is the future of the Democratic Party. And that's a very important, very clear thing to be stated. And this is from the Washington Times and their article on July 3rd, where they're quoting him directly because he was in a radio interview talking about this, that our nation should become not a democratic republic, that our nation is transitioning away from that we are going to become socialist, which is effectively communist, that we are abandoning ideals, because in becoming a socialist, you lose rights. The rights no longer reside with the people, they reside with the state. This is in an abject opposition to the 10th Amendment. It is in abject opposition to the Constitution, to the understanding that the rights are ours by birthright. When we woke up in the morning, when we were born, we had innately these rights, and they are self-evident, just as our lives are self-evident. That we have free will and we have choice, but that cannot exist in a nation that is socialist. Socialism denies the rights of individuals. You are a collective. You are a group. The rights belong to groups, not individuals. Choices are made by the groups in power, not the individual. Choices are made not by the individual. And that is a very important thing to keep in mind, because I know I've talked to many students who are in college here in Binghamton University at SUNY Broome, younger people who are going out into the world, and they have been taught all their lives that, you know what, we should be more socialist, that is the answer to all of the ills of the world, which is wrong, because nowhere in the world do we see how democratic socialists, which are essentially communists, and on that path of communism and socialism and authoritarianism and dictatorship, has ever worked. The Soviet Union failed. China is failing. Cuba has failed. Look at all the major... Venezuela is currently burning. 500 people have been killed by the government forces with no accountability. It is literally burning the nation down. And we're looking at people saying, but the answer is we need more government. That's what socialism is. That's what democratic socialism is. We need more government. We need the government to make these decisions for us. We need the government to decide what's right, that the government will give us our rights and tell us what we can do and cannot do. And the government is the one we answer to. And that is wrong. We answer to no one. We are the answer. The government answers to us. That's what it is. And that's what the 4th of July is supposed to celebrate. That we are in control. This is our government. It can only do what we allow it. In fact, there are many people who have said over time, and I forget the exact quote, and I'll double check that over the break, but the government should only do, and I believe it's Ben Franklin who said this, the government should only do that which the people cannot or will not do. So the government doesn't have ultimate power. We do. The government is limited in what it can do by the fact of what we can do. We can do everything other than what we create a law to not allow ourselves to do. Every time we create new laws, we take away rights and freedoms from each other. And in doing that, we restrict ourselves. We strip ourselves of our innate abilities, powers, and future. So when I hear people saying that Miss Ocasio-Cortez, that she's the future, I get very scared, because that isn't what America is about. Mind you, she has the freedom to believe whatever she wants to believe. I don't stop that. And I want to stop that. And I don't want anyone to say that she doesn't have the freedom to change or to speak to others and express her beliefs. That is what America is about. Please do. Tell us all about what you think. But please do not misunderstand that if we follow with her on this path, if we go along with Ben Jealous, if we go along with the Democratic Party in their rush to the farthest far left, into socialism and communism, into a dictatorship, a totalitarian government, where the government decides everything, and the government is in charge of everything, and you are just a cog in the wheel of government. If that is the direction we're going in, please know that you will never have the same freedoms again. That if we go down that path, we will join the other failed nations in the world, like Russia, like China, like Venezuela, like North Korea, like Cuba. That is the future. And that is what has been proven time and time again in the history of man. So we need to look forward. We need to look forward and say, what is our freedoms? We need to relearn the cursive writing that is no longer being taught in schools because students can't read the actual Constitution. They're reading online what someone else is redefining as the Constitution. What's being redefined as the amendments. How many times have you seen someone say, well, the Second Amendment only applies to hunting and target shooting? That's not what it says. That is in no way, in no form, that's a complete fallacy. You cannot look at the Second Amendment as it is written and come up with another answer or the answer of saying that it's about hunting. Does not apply. You can have a lot of arguments about the Second Amendment, and we have as a nation for hundreds of years, but you cannot say that the Second Amendment was written about hunting. It is a fallacy. That is a direct lie. But so many students and so many younger people now believe that because they can't read the Constitution itself. They're seeing so many things on social media telling them that this is what it should mean and telling them the answer rather than allowing them to see it themselves. And this is socialism. The government is telling you what to believe. This is the PC movement. This is control of thoughts. This is about control. The government is telling you, and agents of the government are telling you, this is what you should think. This is what you should believe. This is what the meaning is. Look at the definition, the meaning of the word assault rifle. And I know I'm speaking a lot about the Second Amendment and firearms, which is a big concern of mine, but it's very important. Look at the definition. An assault weapon now includes rifles. They are not assault weapons. The definition has been changed. You look at the definition just 3 years ago, you do not get the same answer that you get today. Again, looking online, looking at dictionaries today versus in the past. And if you go back to the actual books, not online, but an actual book, and look up the meaning, especially if you're looking at it before 1985, when the term assault weapon suddenly became a rifle, you suddenly realize that they are not the same thing. But that's because we're lying to the youth. And the lie is being pushed out there by those individuals who believe that the government has the rights and people only have a right given by government, that the government is always right and people are wrong. The only people who believe these things and who are promoting these things are people who want to take away freedom to give government power. And I am very, very troubled by that. So when I hear that Ms. Ocasio-Cortez, who believes in these things, who believes in college, no open borders, come on, let's think about that. What does an open border mean? Anyone can get in. That means jihadists, individuals who have promised and live and die for the purpose of being able to kill Americans, to kill democracy, to kill our way of life, regardless of your political party. Then I've never heard anyone in ISIS or Al-Qaeda or any of those organizations, the PPK, any of them have ever said, well, we only want to kill the Republicans or the conservatives or the libertarians or the Democrats or the socialists. They don't make that differentiation. It doesn't matter. They say Americans, all of us, because all of us, in all of our beliefs, they reject them and they are offended by them and they want to destroy them. And in a world where we are, in our nation, where we are becoming more and more dependent on feelings than facts or reality or judgment or freedom, we're guided by feelings. Well, they don't care what our feelings are. And regardless of what our feelings are, they want to kill us all. And going down the path towards socialism, which would allow open borders, only allows us to be more threatened and more endangered than anything else. It's a pretty straightforward thought. It's a pretty straightforward long-term consequence. You may feel good short-term with Ms. Cortez on saying, oh, open borders, it's such a good idea. I like that. It makes me feel good. Yes, short term, it may make you feel good. Long term, it'll get you killed, along with everyone else in America. Because long term, it doesn't protect you. It doesn't make those who would kill us or destroy us or take what we have, our resources, our personnel, our income, our quality of life, our ability to speak freely. All of these things that people in the world either want for themselves or want to ensure that we don't have, they're not going to stop. They come right across the border in that open border scenario, and they take it from us. That's an important and powerful thing to think about, especially since we're talking about this is the 4th of July. But I went over in time, so I'm going to take a quick break, and then we'll come right back, and I'll talk about a different aspect of this for us to consider about the future of the 4th of July and our nation. And so we'll take a quick break, and then we'll go right back to it.
I ain't had you in weeks. I don't even remember how you taste on my lips. Used to be something I needed. Now I see I had a reason. I was bummed out, stressed out, yeah. Think you made me feel the best I had. For a minute I thought I needed you. Now I'm seeing through all of the reasons that I made up in my head. I'm breaking the habit. I'm breaking the habit. I'm breaking the habits that I had, 'cause look where it's got me. Searching for myself, didn't know I lost me. I ain't no saint. Let the devil have a way. I regret it every day. I was bummed out, stressed out, yeah. Think you made me feel the best I had. For a minute I thought I needed you. Now I'm seeing through all of the reasons that I made up in my head. I'm breaking the habit. I'm breaking the habit. I'm breaking the I'm breaking the habit. I'm breaking the habit. I'm breaking the I'm breaking the habit. I'm breaking the
Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us back here at the No Soundbites Allowed podcast on this July 4th podcast, where we're celebrating our nation and each other. And I thank you for being here with me, your host, Michael Voss, the Dragon of the Southern Tier. And I want to thank you for this 4th of July, for being here with me and for celebrating our nation and being part of this nation, this great nation. And we're looking forward right now. We're looking to the future of our nation. Where are we going? What's going to happen? How do we preserve this? Because we have an obligation. The 4th of July is not just a celebration of our past, but it is also a reenactment and a reinforcement of our commitment and our obligation to the future, to continue to preserve the democratic republic that we have, our nation and our freedoms that we have as bound by our Constitution and our amendments. These are the key things that we have to look forward, and we have to make sure that these are going to be preserved, because they will not exist if we do not take the effort to make them exist. That is a fact. Our history of the world shows that when we stop fighting for these things, when we stop paying attention to these things, when we stop working on these things, they go away. They're taken away by force. And that we will see other forms of government, totalitarian, socialist, communist, Nazism, will come about and take over in the place of these things. So it is absolutely important. And I also want to take a moment to thank, very much so, every single one of our military personnel in the world. Thank you for helping to protect our freedoms and to allow us to have the ability to have this podcast, to go out and celebrate on the 4th of July, to have our jobs, our homes, and our families, and to live with safety and freedom. Because without them and their sacrifices throughout all of the hundreds of years that we've been here, it would not be possible. It is only through the sacrifice of blood and pain and suffering that they have had in wars and battles throughout the world over the hundreds of years that we've been here that allow us to get here, that allow us to have this freedom today, to be able to have these choices before us and to know that this is an obligation that we have to preserve what they have fought for. And that's something I believe in absolutely. So I do, once again, want to thank, and I want to send out cheers to every single one of those who have fought in our nation, who are in our military right now. I love you all. I thank you all. You are the reason why I get to do what I do today, and I appreciate it, and I will never forget that. So that's something that's very important and needs to be said. But I'm talking about the future. I'm talking about the future of our nation and where we're going. And as I said in one of my opening statements there, we're talking about the future, not only Miss Ocasio-Cortez and her movement towards socialism and the Democratic Socialist Party that wants to become the Democratic Party and tell us that this is the future of our nation, which I truly reject. And the reason why I do that, look at what we're seeing here in New York State. It was in 2013 that Governor Cuomo was first mentioning to the nation that he wants to see our nation become, or our state, and therefore the nation as well, to become more and more progressive. That's the key word he likes to use, progressive, which is the same thing as saying socialist. It's the same direction that they want to go on. And he's using his speech to appeal to and this is a quote from Bob Master in 2013, as recorded by the New York Times. And he says, quote, to the extent he's using his speech, Governor Cuomo, to appeal to the liberal primary electorate, doing something meaningful on public financing would be a big achievement. I'm going to get to that. And the response by Assemblyman Steve Katz in the January 10th, 2013 article in the New York Times, same one, states that the speech by Governor Cuomo to the Democratic Party is a sharp veer to the left, offering big government solutions for all problems. And that's an end quote. That's a big thing. They're veering to the left in 2013 to offer big government solutions, socialism, to the people. It's called progressive ideas, but it is big government solutions, which means the government is in charge. The government has the power, not the people. Again, the 10th Amendment, all power resides with the people, and states, unless otherwise written. Every time we write a law, every time we enact a bill, that takes away from our freedoms and gives it to the government and takes it away from us. And that's what we've been hearing from Governor Cuomo and Democrats for decades. And they've been using very nice wording about it and appealing to the liberal primary electorate, as stated by Bob Master, to try and let people feel like they're better off, to attack their feelings, but not dealing with the facts. What is the reality that we're dealing with? And it's a very important thing. You know, it's the agenda that we have to be very, very concerned about. I mean, in 2016, We again heard Governor Cuomo talking about how New York has become a progressive capital of the world. And he stated, I think it was the Times Union, had mentioned in 2016, and I quote, that Governor Cuomo said, quote, "We have really made this progressive agenda a reality." Quote, "We are the progressive capital of the nation once again," end quote. That was on the Times Union from Governor Cuomo in 2016, again pushing the idea that this is a progressive movement. But the progressive movement is a socialist movement, a big government movement, a movement that destroys the Constitution both in action and in thought. It takes away from the freedoms of the individual. And this is our obligation given to us from all those who have died and bled and suffered in our nation in all the wars, fighting for our ability to have the freedom to not have government tell us what we can do and tell us what we can think and tell us what we can say, but instead we tell the government what it can do. We tell the government what power it has, because we have the freedom to say and think and do anything that we want. And no party, no group of individuals can change that. You can be black and Republican. You can be Hispanic and conservative. You can be white and libertarian. You can be all of those things and be Democrat. It doesn't matter. We have that freedom. Or you can have none of those ideas. You can be a complete anarchist if you wish. It is your freedom to choose to be whatever you want to be. It is not for the government to say that you must be this. And it is not for social media and entertainment to define you as a category, as a group, that everyone, if you are black, then you are all the same thing. And that same thing is defined by yet another group. That if you are gay, or if you are transgendered, or you are a woman, or you are an Asian or Hispanic, that you are suddenly, these are your categories. This is what you are. And you're even qualified by that. How many times have we heard people talk about how qualified President Obama was because he was black? Or how qualified Hillary Clinton is because she is a woman? Or that Ocasio-Cortez is so qualified because she is a Hispanic woman? Those aren't qualifications. I didn't mention a single qualification there. That is a innate fact of birth. President Obama was born half white, half black. Hillary Clinton was born a woman. Ms. Cortez is a woman by birth and Hispanic by birth. Those aren't qualities. Those aren't qualifications. They are just natural, physical, existing things. That's to say that they have 2 arms and 2 legs. Does that make them qualified for anything? No. That doesn't mean that they're qualified to lead. That doesn't mean that their ideas are better or worse than anyone else. They just happen to have been born with 2 arms, 2 legs, 5 fingers. That doesn't matter. That's not a qualification. And if someone were to say, he has brown hair, therefore he is qualified to lead the nation, you would look and say, that is stupid. Then why is it any different to say they have a pigment in their skin or they don't, and therefore they are qualified to lead? They have a gender, and that therefore they are qualified to lead. Those are silly statements. We are being thrown off. We're being thrown off because we're saying that these are progressive ideas. It's progressive to recognize that someone has a gender. We all have gender. It doesn't matter. That's not a prerequisite for anything. That doesn't qualify you for anything. That is just what you are. It is not progressive to say that, oh, someone is of a certain race or ethnicity or religious background. That doesn't make you better or worse. That just makes you what you are. Those are not inherent qualities. Being smart at math is an inherent quality. Being good at sports is an inherent quality, which you can then take that raw talent and refine it and become even greater and become a mathematician or become a sports athlete, like a football player or basketball player. You can become a great orator and speaker. You can become a great writer of books and poetry and movies. You can be a great cinematographer. You can become many, many things. But that is your freedom being expressed. That is not the government telling you that you must be these things. That is not the government restricting you being able to make choices for yourself. And that is our obligation, to ensure that our next generation, our current generation, has the ability to make those choices, that they can be whatever they want to be and not defined by what they are by birth. Because you were born a male, or because you were born female, or you were born black or white or Asian or Hispanic, is not something that should limit you, nor should it define you. And if it does, then that is racism. Period. Stop. It doesn't matter who is making that statement. If you are judging and evaluating people and assigning them values based on the fact of their color of skin or their gender, you are being sexist. You are being racist. Period. It doesn't change whether you're white or black in making the statement. You're still being sexist or racist. It doesn't matter if you're male or female. It's still the same thing. But again, we are repurposing. We're seeing people repurpose and redefine the meanings of so many words so as to make people believe that there is a right and wrong to this that doesn't exist. That racism can only occur by certain people and cannot be done by other people. To say that I am black and cannot be racist is a lie. Just as much as a lie as it is to say that someone is white must be racist. That is a lie. To say that people are inherently racist or sexist or biased because of their subconscious thoughts is stupid. You're not responsible for what you subconsciously think. You're not. You can't know those things. How can you be responsible for those things? That is just a means of being able to tell someone that I want to control you. That is an entryway for the government to say, since you can't know what you're thinking, and since we are telling you that what you're thinking is sexist and racist and wrong, we, the government, will come in and correct that for you because you don't even know you're doing it. You don't even know it exists. And effectively, it may not exist since no one can know your thoughts. And if you don't even know them, no one can tell you that they are true or not. But the government will come in and protect others for it. They will inflict actions against you and for others that will define them and restrict them because the government says so. That's wrong. Think about that. There are some who are in the progressive mindset who are saying that you, listening to this, I don't care if you're white, black, woman, female, gay, straight, whatever it is, you need to be restricted, restrained, denied freedom, and dictated to and told what to do because you have a thought in the back of your head that you don't even know about that is affecting you and making you biased of some form. And because of that, the government has to go out and protect others and restrict you. That is insulting. That is horrendous. That is insane. That is saying that you can't drive a car because in the back of your head, you want to speed. You're going to speed. You're going to be speeding, or that you're going to go and run over someone because in the back of your head, a thought may exist that you might think for even a moment that you might run over a car, a person, a dog, anything. And because of that unknown subconscious thought that may be fleeting for whatever reason, you no longer have a right to have a vehicle. That's a scary thought, isn't it? And think about it. And this is something you don't even know about. I mean, what about the conscious thoughts you have? Has anyone ever had the thought that, hey, maybe, walking past a bank, you got a lot of bills, a lot of debt. You know, I wish I could just rob a bank. But you don't. You don't do that. You don't go out and rob a bank. You don't harm other individuals. You just deal with it. You had that idea, you went past it. Oh, I wish I could give that girl a kiss. I wish I could give that guy a kiss. Oh, I wish that I could, whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. But you don't act on it because we're human beings. We have the ability to regulate ourselves, to take the conscious thoughts we have that may be flying through the air for whatever reason, because we have imaginations, and we can filter those thoughts and go, no, that's something I'm just not going to do. Because even those, especially those who are artists, they dream of things. Think about it. You have horror movies. You don't see anyone going around then saying, well, I want to be a slasher. We have, horror movies, Nightmare on Elm Street, various, Patient Zero or others like that, Primal and some others, where we're talking about, we have to fight these evil people. There's this evil killer running around killing people. But people don't do that. They don't do that. Why? Because that's not something we want to do. And what? We're going to say that the director, the actors, the writer, that they're evil people because they wrote that story? No. They just wrote a story because their imagination allowed them to think of that and to make that story. That doesn't mean that they're inherently evil or that they're about to commit that evil. But yet, under this philosophy from progressives, that your unconscious thought is a action, then you have to be held responsible with that. And that means that everyone in Hollywood should be arrested for any time that they show any form of any kind of violence whatsoever. That's insane, isn't it? It's a stupid consequence, except that is a long-term consequence. And this is what is being imposed on us step by step. And we need to fight against that. We need to protect. We have an obligation to protect that freedom going forward. Because you may say to me, Mike, well, that sounds kind of silly today. But I guarantee you, not today, tomorrow, the next day, there is a problem. Because if we don't act on it and preserve our freedoms today, we won't have them tomorrow. That is something that is an ongoing challenge every day, every year in our nation. And it doesn't mean that everyone has to agree. It does not mean that. I'm not asking anyone to believe what I believe. I am asking them to preserve the very foundation that allows us to speak about what we believe, to defend and stand by what we believe, whatever it may be. But if we're not actively doing that, we don't get to have that. But with that said, everyone, I want to take a moment. I thank you for taking this time to be with me, to speak with me on the July 4th about freedom, about our obligation to ensure that our freedoms are going to remain there for not just ourselves, but the next generation, to be aware that whatever we individually may believe, that we understand that it is the fact that we have individual beliefs that makes our nation great. And when we give that up, well, then we lose all of those freedoms, no matter what you may believe. And that's what we're seeing, trending and starting to happen in our nation. That's where we're going, is to lose these freedoms, to be grouped by silly discussions of what group we belong to, that you're black or you're male or you're female or you're Asian or you're white. When we lose sight of the real freedom, which is that we're any of those things and all of those things, and we are thinking people who have choices. And when we lose sight of that, we lose sight of our freedoms, we lose sight of what built this nation, and we cease to have this nation. Let's look forward. Let's look forward to having another 100, 200, 300 years of freedom, of America, of the democratic republic that we have in the Constitution that we live by, that has allowed us to get to where we are today and can continue to take us going to the future. And I thank, again, everyone for taking a moment to listen to this, to think about it, to hear these ideas, and ultimately to help us preserve what we have today and to improve it and make it better for tomorrow, because freedom is our obligation. It is something we have to work at to make possible, and I know we can together. I thank you. This is Michael Voss with No Soundbites Allowed. I look forward to your comments and thoughts. I hope everyone has a great 4th of July. I'll talk to you again soon.
searching for my companion for so long. Look out, here comes the dawn. Look to my left, look to my right, searching for something, but something ain't right. This glass ain't full, it's fucking empty. Let's play cowboys and Indians. I'll be the cowboy, you be the Indian. I'll shoot my rifle, you shoot your house of blood. Struck once, twice, three times a charm. Beautiful woman with a deadly arm. If love weren't a game, I'd be dead forever. Let's play cowboys and Indians. Let's play cowboys and Indians. Let's play all night long. Smoke signals coming from the canyon. I've been searching for my companion for so